everybody, it's Angelo with Angelo's Workbench. Welcome back to video number 5 in the Revell Chevy Beretta Pro Street video series. We're going to start out with finalizing some chassis assembly. We're going to get to a rolling chassis where I'll have the wheels and tires on, and the wheels and tires on this kit are so sweet. They look great. It has such a great stance. And then we're going to move on to body detailing, where I'm going to be masking and painting some details on the body. I'm also going to today go through a couple different methods of masking and getting sharp lines on your body when you're detailing. The glue I am using today is the Bob Smith Industries Super Gold Plus, which is a odorless, gap-filling CA glue. Cures in 5 to 20 seconds. It is a medium variety of glue, and it cures very quickly and works very quickly and does not fog any chrome parts or clear parts. And now we're moving on to the wheels. For the front wheels, I found it was easiest to glue the two halves together without the tire in the way, and then let the crazy glue cure fully, and then apply it into the tire that way. It was a lot easier that way. I couldn't get the two halves to stay together with the tire pushing it apart. Here I am applying what's called a Zap Kicker, which is a crazy glue curer. You put the crazy glue on and apply the parts together, and then when you put the kicker on, it cures the crazy glue instantly. And with the chassis completed and looking great, we can move on to detailing the body. What I'm going to do first is the area surrounding the engine under the hood I feel should be black. So I am using frog tape. I've mentioned this before in my videos. It is a tape that looks just like Tamiya tape, works just like Tamiya tape, yields fantastically straight lines with no bleeding. It's called frog tape. That comes in yellow and green varieties. The yellow is my favorite. And what I do is I cut it into thin strips using a metal ruler and my X-Acto knife. And depending on the nature of the curves that I have to cover, depends on how thin I cut the strip. Sometimes it's very thin, sometimes it's a little thicker, as I am using here. And then I cover the remaining areas with whole pieces, and then it is ready to be sprayed. And now we're back from the spray booth. You'll notice that the paint is still a little wet. I like to remove the masking tape while the paint is still a little wet. You have less chance of peeling the paint that way. And it's as simple as just removing the tape and being careful not to touch anything with anything that's wet. You don't want to get any stray marks of black anywhere on your body. And then from there, it's ready to go, and then just keep your hands away from it for a little while and let it fully cure. I mentioned earlier that we were going to see two different methods of masking. This is one of them. This is where you would take the tape and you would cut it into very thin strips, and you would work it around the curves of the angle. Sometimes it takes many strips. So you'll see what I've done is the bottom of the window is flat, so I've applied an entire piece all along the bottom. And the details of the body are fairly raised up. They're pretty easy to run a tape line along because you have a plastic edge to work with. And that's exactly what I'm going to do for the rest of this side of the body, is I'm going to cut thin strips, work them around the corners. Sometimes I have to use many little tiny pieces to cover where I don't want paint to be, and then use larger pieces to fill in behind the thin strips so that the entire area of the body is protected from overspray, and then it will go off to the paint booth, come back, and we will remove the tape. Notice that I am burnishing all of the edges around where I want the paint line to be with my fingernail. I sometimes use my fingernail, I sometimes use a toothpick or a piece of metal. Anything to make sure that the tape is fully seated against the body. Anything that lifts will have overspray show up under it. So now we have returned from the paint booth and are removing the tape lines, and see how sharp our lines are. Now I'd like to show you the other method for accomplishing masking in an area like this. As I mentioned previously, the details of this body are highly raised, are very easy to see through a piece of tape. This method involves just covering the entire area with masking tape, kind of running my fingernail or a toothpick along the edge of where it is to show it on the tape so I know where to cut with my razor knife, and then just using the X-Acto blade very carefully. You only want to cut through the tape. You don't want to cut through the clear coat and the body and the paint, because then you have a chance of, when you're removing the tape, removing your clear coat and your paint as well. So you want to be very careful to just cut the tape and then remove the portion that covers the part where you want to paint, and you have a well-masked line. After you've removed that piece, you do still need to burnish your edges. Upon return from the paint booth, we are carefully removing the masking tape, being sure not to get black paint on anything we do not want black paint on. We do it while the paint is still slightly wet, so you have to be careful. And that reveals a nice, sharp, crisp line. I do enjoy using the frog tape very much. And that wraps it up for video number 5. I hope you'll join me in video number 6, where we will continue on and mate the body to the chassis and move toward final assembly. As always, please submit any questions or comments, and thank you for tuning in.